Welcome to today's episode of the Buzby Dog Podcast, where we're going to talk about a foreshadowed hope. And today's podcast is really just a story. It doesn't have educational value in the truest sense of the word, but I want to share a piece of my life with you and something that's very near and dear to my heart. The clinic where I work part-time holds an annual open house every December, and in 2011, I was manning my holistic dog healthcare station, just chatting with clients and sipping on a hot cocoa, when the trajectory of my life was changed forever. Naturally, at a veterinary open house, pets are welcome, and I had treated Morgan, one of our technician's dogs, a few times, and I was really happy to see her headed my way across the parking lot, sporting a festive bandana, and accompanying her was the technician's husband, Todd, who is the closest thing I'll ever meet to Leonardo da Vinci. He's been a forest ranger, a horse farrier, and currently makes his living as a chainsaw artist, and he's an absolute brilliant mind. So he comes up to me and he says, "Look what I did for Morgan," and he pointed to her feet and smiled. I explained this moment by saying, "He had me at hello." I took one look at her toenails and goosebumps covered my arms. Todd had concocted just simple little rubber rings for Morgan's nails, which I inherently understood would give her traction. I was awestruck because a dog's natural mechanism for traction is to flex the paws and engage the nails, much like soccer cleats digging into the ground. Yet never before had a practical, tangible solution capitalized on traction from the standpoint of the dog's toenails. I had moved to South Carolina in 2008, and my practice, I owned a practice previously that was a general practice, but from that time on, my practice really was limited to chiropractic and acupuncture in dogs, and so by virtue of that, my patients were mostly senior dogs with mobility challenges. So slipping and struggling on hard surface floors was a big problem for my patients. I knew dozens of different types of dog socks and booties were on the market to address this, but honestly, I felt they were impractical solutions and so unnatural for the dog that I felt the better option was just to recommend throw rugs and runners for my slipping patients. So I'm looking at this thing on Morgan's toes, and my mind is flooding with patients that I know could benefit from this idea, and I'm just stuttering. I told Todd that I desperately needed him to meet me and my patients and try these for some of these dogs that were flooding my mind, and I begged him, would you please help me with these other dogs? And he graciously agreed to meet me at my house the following Saturday. So I called one client immediately and I arranged for Hope, a 15-year-old shepherd mix, to come to my home for that Saturday. And in my abundant enthusiasm, apparently I forgot to tell her owner, Kim, why she was coming. I just said I needed Hope to be there and it's going to be so exciting. I also arranged for Chan, a 16-year-old shepherd, to be fitted for the devices, and he was already scheduled for an acupuncture appointment that day at my house, so that was going to work out well. In my enthusiasm, I began texting Todd multiple times a day with idea names for the product. I was in my glory. More than once I had to jump out of the shower and jot down notes on a soggy wet piece of paper. At this point, this was obviously Todd's idea, and I just wanted to help him do the barn raising, if you will. In one shower, I had the idea of using Dr. Buzby's as a sort of endorsement to the product, and I presented that to him. I didn't want to overstep my bounds. I just told him it was an option, and I wanted to support him any way I could to get this idea out to help dogs. So Saturday came around, and Todd and his wife came in at the scheduled time and met Chan at the end of his appointment. I introduced the Chan's owners and Todd, and he began to put on the early prototypes. They didn't slide onto the nails. I really didn't know what to expect. I had never personally handled them. So I'm watching Todd, and they're just not really going on the nails because they are designed to fit snugly. So Todd spat in them to provide lubrication, and we all got a chuckle out of that. Luckily, Chan's owners were horse people and not germaphobes, so they were right there. Sadly, Chan passed away very shortly after getting his ToeGrips applied. Of course, they weren't called ToeGrips then. This was just in the prototype phase. But I was really excited to get this feedback from his mom, who went out of her way to tell me that they were way better than the adhesive stickers you're supposed to stick to the paw pads that her sister sent her. Now, at this point, I didn't even know adhesive strips for the paw pads existed. That was news to me, but it was really good news because it was another impractical solution. And now I was realizing more acutely that what was true in my own practice had to be true on a bigger scale. There were enough solution attempts out there that I thought, you know what, this has got to be a problem for other people besides my patients. This has got to be commonplace, and a relevant solution is just waiting to be had. And here it was in my basement. So hope is really the reason we exist today. That was Chan. That was I love that Chan's a part of the story because he passed on, but his memory lives in the ToeGrips story. Hope, however, is the reason we exist. It's what I saw in Hope that Saturday that changed my life and hers. So shortly after Chan and his family left, Kim and Hope pulled up to the curb in front of my house, and Kim got out cheerfully. She's just a sweet, sunny soul, and she yelled out to the crowd of us standing in my front yard, "Dr. Julie, you didn't even tell me why I'm here, but you were so excited and you said it was really important, so we're here." So I laughed and I felt bad at the same time. Keeping her in suspense was not intentional. So Kim moved around to the back of her SUV to extract Hope from the car. So she gently lifted down this big dog until her paws touched the ground, and she declared she's having a bad day. And this shaggy, gray-muzzled, sweet old girl hobbled pathetically down my driveway as if to prove it. Hope had had a knee surgery years earlier that had not healed correctly, and as a result, she never put much weight on that right hind leg. Whenever she used it, pushing off in a normal stride, the leg always twisted out, really kind of grotesquely. So sweet Hope made it down my driveway and just flopped down obligingly, and Todd started applying these things on her nails. After the 5 minutes or so it took to get them on, we coaxed her to stand up, and she had no leash on. She just gradually meandered back down the driveway to her car. Her gait was 75 or 80% improved. Instantly. My jaw hung. I was processing how in the world this could be possible. I had seen Hope every 3 weeks for the prior 2 years. I knew this dog. My very first appointment with Kim 2 years prior was a tearful one because she thought it might be time to let Hope go. As is often the case, she had come for an alternative medicine consultation as a last-ditch effort to attempt to save her dog, who she perceived just had a poor quality of life because of mobility issues. I remember hugging Kim and praying with her that day and assuring her that I held out hope for the dog named Hope. I felt confident we would be able to improve her pain management, and that would translate into her feeling better and moving better. And thereafter, we'd been aggressive in her treatment protocol, and she'd responded really well. I had prescribed Western medications, joint supplements, Chinese herbs, and I said I treated her every 3 weeks for acupuncture and with chiropractic. So she was holding her own, doing actually much better than when I met her, but I could never improve that slipping issue she had where she would twist that leg when she stepped down on it. It was a biomechanical problem, one which no amount of pills or therapies were going to cure. The torquing of Hope's hind leg affected Kim potentially more than it affected Hope. Kim believed the reason Hope was like that was because she didn't keep her quiet and really follow the surgeon's instructions to a T when Hope was recovering from her knee surgery, and she had re-injured it at that time. So it did impact Hope. But as with so many of my clients who love their dogs so fervently, when they see their dogs failing, they feel like they're failing too. And so I understood that this issue was important not just in the dog's life, but in the human's life too. And every time Hope was stepping on this leg and gaiting abnormally to compensate for her hind leg deficits, she was putting stress on her other legs, on her back and her neck. But now, here was Hope sauntering down my driveway. Sauntering is the word I would use there. That's the right verb. She was using both hind legs remarkably well. She'd gone from what we call a 4 out of 5 lame to a 2 out of 5 lame. So this means she was initially just toe touching on that leg, but now, although she was still limping, your grandmother probably wouldn't even realize that Hope was limping. So that's how I'm judging the 2 out of 5 lame. It was a significant and instant improvement. The only logical explanation that I could come up with, and since then I've seen it in other patients, so I believe this to be true, is that when she bore weight on her bad leg and it didn't twist out from under her because she had newfound grip, she was willing to bear more weight on that leg. In other words, when she put pressure on that leg as she stepped and it twisted, that translated into torque into that knee that hurt, so she just avoided doing it. So in about 5 minutes, the time that it took to apply the devices, Hope's posture and gait were instantly revolutionized. In my driveway that day, as Hope explored my shrubs with a smile on her face, I knew we had to make this device available for other dogs. I wasn't thinking globally at that time. I was just thinking there were going to be a lot of happy dogs and happy people in the United States if we could pull this off. And as the weeks went on, I just became more and more passionate about the hope this idea provided for senior dogs. Shortly thereafter, Todd came to me and said, "Julie, if you think you can help dogs with this, go for it." Essentially, he had other projects he was working on, and he passed the torch to me. And I remain unspeakably grateful for this gift, which has dramatically changed the course of countless dogs' lives, not to mention my own. And that is the story of ToeGrips, which have sold in almost 60 countries, are now carried by thousands of veterinarians worldwide, and have helped hundreds of thousands of slipping paws turn back the clock and rediscover confident mobility.